Hello, my name is John Duran. I'm here with Ray Sewell, known as Chez Ray. We're at the Teddy Bear Picnic 2011, and we've just had a wonderful meal. And
was yours wonderful?
Well, actually, I just prepared the meal. How was yours?
Mine was okay.
This was fine.
Several of the things were delicious, and a couple were odd.
That's the one I prepared. So we're going to ask some questions about Ray's life when he left California and he moves into Oregon. And it just so many events occurred in your life at that point.
All at once.
And
they were still happening all at once.
And they're still happening.
Yeah.
It's still impacting you since
you know,
your
ideas never look back. You know.
So I know that the story changes all the time, but most of it's true. If you tell us this version. What is this new version?
Same version.
Same version.
Same version. So, well, I moved from Oregon, as I was saying, to come and hang out with a friend of mine who was in the Peace Corps, and who said you should come up to Eugene. So I came to visit him, and he took me to the Saturday market, and I thought, shit, I could do this. And I went back, gave notice, and to Emil, who was
in
California, and he said, well, it's time for you to leave anyways. You're done with your journeyman, and it's like letting the bird out of the nest. And
right.
So I flew back here immediately, and that weekend was the Grateful Dead concert out here at the Oregon Country Fair site, 1972, and turned out to be the hottest day of the year, and it was just, you know, I'd been to hundreds of Grateful Dead concerts by then, but none quite so magnificent as the one that was here, because it was so organic. You know, the stench of BO from the heat, and the marvelous naked women, and the, you know, just everything about it was intense, including me being here and out of California added to it. So I was already so on this magic trip, you know, my personal journey. You know, like taking acid without taking acid. You know, it's just everything is wide-eye and amazing. And so I wandered into this concert and was just...
was it here at Main Stage?
No, it was at the out in the field of the parking lot, which is now the parking lot out in the front of the fair site.
Yes.
And you know, it was just really... it was just quite a magnificent thing. So it's very... almost hard to explain the intensity of it, because this was the first concert that they had put together here, and its purpose was to save the Springfield Creamery from being taken down by the IRS and to collect taxes. So the Dead came up to save the day, which they did, and brought the creamery out of the hole, and so there was real purpose to the whole thing to begin with, and so everybody involved was very driven, you know, to make this thing happen.
So was that Ken Kesey's family?
It was, yeah, Ken's brother Chuck.
I see.
Married to Sue Kesey now, and they have Nancy's Yogurt, which is probably the best yogurt that I've ever had.
A lot of bacteria.
A lot of bacteria, culture. Culture.
It's all about culture.
That's all about culture. That's right, and it's not just counter. It's yogurt. So it really had purpose and reason and rhyme, and so, you know, once I sort of got the story of the scene,
yeah,
it really made me feel like, wow, this is really something. You know, the Dead's here, and from my hometown, my hometown band, you know, the Gang, and here I am in Oregon, and here they are, and you know, it's quite moving for somebody like me, sort of first time away from home, moving to a new place, and it was pretty heavy. It was heavy. So.
Did you see yourself at that time playing any role? Were you introduced to the Dead in a way as a chef? Or how did that...
You mean like a French roll?
Like it could be a French roll. Okay. I mean, that would have been the best way to present it.
Probably so, since I'm into culinary arts, but not at the moment. Not until Paige Browning. I wandered into the backstage area, curious, you know, and always driven to find out. My mom taught me about the idea of it's not just about the art, but the artist behind the art. And so I was raised in that kind of training, and so I sought that from the get-go. And so immediately I went back to see, what drives this thing? Who are these people? And right away I ran into Paige, who was painted face like a mime trooper, and sort of a black and white clown face, and pretty intense cat. Magic was were his cosmetics. It was really very stunning kind of character, and so he right away said, "Yeah, what are you doing back here?" And I said, "Well, I'm just hanging out." And he said, "Well, you have to have a reason to hang out. If you want to hang out anywhere, you have to have a reason. You can't just hang out and take space up." So it really sunk in with me, and I thought, "Well, I can cook." I said, "Well, come on, man, go do something."
Yeah.
So that was my introduction into as a direction that I could go in, because I had at this point graduated from my apprenticeship, went through a journeymanship. I was pretty hot by then. I could, really felt that I understood cooking. I was really driven. I felt that I was talented enough to be able to rise up in whatever I went into, whatever endeavor, and I was looking for a direction of something that I'd like to do and would sustain a level of passion, so I could really get behind in my life. And so rock and roll was the old chefs.
Yes.
Had a thing that when Carême and Escoffier, their whole gig was to cook for the kings of their time.
Right.
And that became my passion too. I wanted to cook for the kings of my time, which to me were the rock and roll, the 60s icons. Right. I so believed in their thinking process and who they were and what they were driving to do, and the immensity of the whole cultural phenomena and its purpose behind it. Not just that this is, a bunch of hippies smoking pot.
Right.
That was like a sideshow that people brought up first as an excuse not to get involved. But what's really going on, it was changing society in a huge way. And so I
went back into Saturday Market.
Well, then I went back to I went back into town and started to, after the concert. It took me a few days to recover, and to say the least. And but that next weekend I went down, and there was an opening at the Saturday Market.
Wow!
So I put a booth together and opened up the following weekend, and started making these custard omelets that were a huge hit from the get-go. I called it the faucet effect. My line, I could turn it off or turn it on. As soon as I opened, the line would be there.
Wow.
I closed, the line would go away.
Yeah.
It's just.
It looks like you got an order there. I'm hearing the phone ring.
Is that my phone?
Maybe not.
No, it's your phone.
Oh, it could be.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought you might have an order.
No, it's her phone.
A special order. You start talking about your food and people are calling.
Well, that happens a lot, but you can't answer everything, John. Not even your questions. So
how popular did you get at the Saturday Market?
Well, popular enough to be able to listen to music and talk to you at the same time.
Oh my gosh, that's really.
But popular enough to have this Italian family come to my booth, the Justina family.
Justina family.
Which were timber barons.
Yes.
In the state of Oregon, the fifth largest landowners, and I saw them come to my booth, more than once. They would pop in. They had an omelet, and then he would come back with two other people, and they would eat, and then they would come back with three other people, and they would all eat, and I could see that they were checking me out, and
now they're kings in a way.
But, in a way, but I didn't know who they were.
You didn't know who they were.
No, I just saw these people as very savvy eaters, smart because they were eating my food, I felt,
Apparently, yeah.
That's right. So,
what did it lead to? Was there any?
Well, it led to that they offered me a partnership in a restaurant if I could impress the rest of the family that they flew in from Italy, and for the big test, the big dinner. Yeah, the big dinner. It was another test. There's many acid tests along the way of life, and this was one of them. Some are antacid and some are LSD, but in this case it was neither. It was purely just a culinary test.
Yes.
And it was a great challenge because I really had a chance to put together a really fantastic meal. I don't remember what it was, but I remember it blew their minds. And at the end of the meal, they said, whatever you want to do, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And they had already purchased a piece of property on 7th and Lawrence, an old rundown, beautiful old house that at the time was a halfway house.
I see.
They ended up remodeling that, huge investment. And I designed the business itself, the design of how exactly I wanted it to, as a functioning tool.
I see.
And so I was able to put in a butcher room downstairs and a walk-in cooler to age my beef in, and I had everything. I had a wine cellar that was perfect, mostly underground, exposed dirt, so the temperature was consistent and 57 degrees, and in the angle of the wine, everything was like exact. It was really fantastic opportunity, and the kitchen was it was difficult because I had to fit within a space that was pretty much already existing, the size of that kitchen, and then how to interact with the dining room. And it had these sliding glass doors, little glass panels, so I decided to keep them, and I didn't want people looking clearly into the kitchen because you don't want to see a dirty towel or something. So I put like somewhat smoky glass so they could see what I wanted them to do. The glass looked right over the flame. So every time I would saute, a big flame would come up, and the dining room could see that, and it was really quite magnificent theater, which was the whole idea.
I see.
Yeah. And
so you were presenting already a theater presentation in your cooking.
Totally. That was
and did knowing the Dead and seeing that big stage that they perform on was part of your life? Did you see that in the future?
Well, I never really saw anything. I just went towards it.
I see.
You know, it's like, it's more of, it's the same way that I cook. You know, you go see what's there and you come up with a way to create an art piece out of it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the same kind of thing. You know, life is like that. If you strategize and wait for the precise image or precise thing that you want to, you know, I'm not going to do it until it's perfect, you don't do shit in life, you know. But if you just go on to the next thing. But in this case, in a sense, yes, that was true with the Dead, but more so they were part of the influence of what I was doing. But in the context of La Primavera and that particular art form, that theater, I was much more into the theater of the culinary arts, of just the people, impressing the people with the variety of images and smells and excitement of cooking, not just a feast, you know, not just dining experience.
True.
I really wanted it to be a full experience.
I'm wondering, Ray, you were in the restaurant business for a while, and you were presenting the foods that you had been trained to in California, and so, but you did take the side road over here to go towards one of your passion, which was to be with the Dead. And I know during that time that you had met Ken Kesey and that he had an impact on your life too. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about during this time?
You know, again, it wasn't that I, I was a fan of the Grateful Dead, but they were just along the path that I was following.
I see.
It wasn't that I purposely went to go, ask them to cook for them. You know, it wasn't like that. And the same that concert that appeared when I got in Eugene, I didn't know there was a concert in Eugene when I got there.
Right.
I heard the day I got there, and I went to the concert.
I see.
And it's the same with Kesey. When I met Kesey, it was purely just because I moved out to Pleasant Hill, and Kesey came by to greet me moving into the community.
Oh, I see.
And then we got to be very close friends. And and it just happened then that this marvelous, inventory of really amazing characters would roll through to see Ken, that I would become exposed to, and soon became friends with. And it wasn't as though I was out there waiting for these people to show up. I didn't know, but I just continued to go into it. I think that's really sort of important. It's not to, you want to have, you want to stay open, open for the experience when it comes. Take it, you don't even know what it is, and I think that's the cool thing about it, is that I didn't know, but boy, as soon as I found out, I could become engaged and then use what skills I have to apply to it. And so I'd go to Ken's, and Faye was a marvelous cook. So she certainly didn't need me to do anything, but I could help, I could help, and there would be big potlucks, and I'd bring over a big dish, and, it was really fantastic opportunity to, Ken had this big round table, and people would come in, and it was, it was special. He'd have a book for Garcia or Tim Leary or Ginsberg, whatever, who was ever at the round table, that they would draw in some little something and write some little something in the book, and it was always so funny, and these people were really heavy hitters, and so it was turned into not just a very deep friendship, although it also helped that I was a wrestler, and Ken was a wrestler, and so our real bond came from the first day I met him, and he saw that I have a cauliflower ear, which I have a recipe for, by the way. But
didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that one existed.
Potage dewberry. But
how many ears do you need?
Well, let's see. Van Gogh, right? Get it right here. I think it was something like that. But anyways, that was really a sort of an introduction into a huge, marvelous, cycle of meeting all kinds of incredible people, and that then became my exposure to these bands, but more important, their exposure to me, to see who I am and how they felt about me and how much they trusted who I was, and through that they invited me to come and cook. Although having Nikki Scully, Rock Scully's wife, Rock Scully was the manager of the Grateful Dead, live in Eugene and be part of the friends of Kesey and stuff, we formed a little tiny company to go into it. So that really helped when it came down to cooking for him. But anyways, that was, so yeah, it all sort of eventually happened together, but none of it intentional.
Well, I'm kind of at this point where we probably need to take just a bit of a break. I just want to,
And I'm rolling.
Okay, so.
You don't look like you're rolling.
He doesn't either.
I know. What's he rolling, joints?
Can we have some of that?
That's right. Light it up. Quit rolling.
So we're back at the country fair. For the first time you step into the country fair, that's 1972. That all this is happening on the first year you visit Oregon.
Yeah, and I'm still on that magic cooking tour of my life. Life is just cooking. I'm just going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and everything is as magnificent, if not greater, than the previous one.
Really, it keeps building.
Yeah, and it has not stopped ever.
Okay,
but,
so we kind of know what you are doing at Chez Ray's stage. We know the kind of food that's out there. We're wondering if you could touch on some of those items, but maybe you can tell us how you stepped into the country fair scene. How did that start for you?
Well, when I was 5 years old.
Oh, there we go.
It was, it's just, this is my daughter and my son-in-law, by the way.
Ah, yes.
Shine and Kyle. Shine and Kyle. So I got into it somebody asked me if I wanted to do the country fair.
From the Saturday market?
I guess, I don't know, somebody of, the millions of somebodies that I've come across. And so I came out and checked it out and said, shit, yeah, I'd do this, this looks great. And so I was already, I had my chef whites and stuff, and I was really into the theater of being a chef. So I saw this as just a terrific theatrical opportunity to blow some minds, which was always my intent.
Out in the country fair.
Out in the country fair, and come up with dishes that I had to sort of dummy down in a sense by taking classic French dishes and bring them into booth food.
Yeah, right.
And so people could carry it around and be able to manage it. And the cost wouldn't be $29.50. You know, it'd be more like 50. You know, and just so you know, I started getting creative and trying a variety of different things. But mostly I stuck in the earlier years with omelets, variations of omelets, and it was quite a challenge because those days there was a lot of sort of psychedelic energy, we'll say, and it was very interesting to cook and be under the experimental conditions of your environment, in and out of your head, and it was quite fascinating to look at an omelet pan and see more than one pan and have to decide which one is the real one, and then cook with it. So you know, that
and
was.
then they have to pay for it. I mean, you pay for the real
and were
one.
they even there? I don't know. No, it was pretty cool. It was. You know, again, I had the same kind of giant line, and people seemed to find me, even though I put myself way in the back of the fair where I didn't really want to be in the main flow. I wanted to be where they would come upon me, you know, and they would all come on to me in a sense, and it would just be this marvelous moment that they were just blown away. Wow, what's this? And
way out here.
Yeah, way out here, and so they were already dazzled by its location and stuff. So you know, I had to compete with that and make the whole theater comparable in a sense. So I had that, and I had meeting these musicians, and I had a little tiny stage, and then you know, it was fantastic ambiance, and it just took off, and yeah, it just really opened up a lot more doors.
So I understand that once the fair people knew that you were really popular, they wanted to open up a different part of the fair, and they wanted you to come along to bring more popularity and
well,
people down that end.
This is like within a blink of the eye time. It was 20 years. After 20 years, and they were opening up this new section.
I see.
And they wanted me to be the lure for the audience to come that direction. So they asked me if I would love to move into this spot that they had selected for me. As it turned out, they had selected it a number of years ago in their sort of behind-the-scenes underground way of knowing what to do in advance before we have any idea we're going to do it. They had scoped all this out and made their plans, and so I fell into their wonderful trap, which I'm real grateful for, because it's probably the most beautiful spot at the fair. And so yeah, I moved into my new spot, and it opened up a whole nother area of possibilities. My stage is glorious, and the booth is far more functional, and a lot more dining, and it's
sort of a junction too, right there.
Yeah, it's a junction, and you know, people come in and go in. It's really it's a marvelous location. I'm very happy there. And
well, I can think of some signature dishes that you are known for. One of them is the salmon burger.
Salmon burger,
and that came about with you working with the dealer to come up with the salmon burger originally.
Well, actually, it came about by I realized when I was filleting salmon, like most people, you just run the knife along the spine, and then put the carcass aside, and then you deal with the beautiful fillet.
Yes.
Well, on the carcass remains about a ½ inch to an inch of meat, just in the pocket of the spine.
Yeah.
And in beef and pork and stuff, along that spine is actually where the tenderloin is. So the tenderloin of the salmon, you might say, is the best part of the salmon meat. It's the most tender. It's like exquisite, rich flavor and color. So I would just take a spoon and scoop that out.
Oh, I see.
And so pretty soon I started talking to the fish companies about buying all their carcasses. And for every 100 pounds of carcass, I would end up with about 20, 30 pounds of meat.
Really?
And so I would buy the carcass for like $1 a carcass, you know, and I started doing this actually at in a big way when I was doing it at the 5th Street Public Market restaurant that I had. But back then it was just on my own, experimental, trying to do the best way I could at the time. But it turned into an amazing process, which eventually turned into an industry, and off it went, you know.
Right, and you still have that on your menu today.
Yeah, it's my signature dish. But it's really the salmon is one of the reasons why it's so delicious, but there's another secret to it. There's a couple of them. One was
Did you say a secret? So what is that secret?
What is what secret?
The secret you're just about to tell
What is
us.
what secret?
The secret to the salmon. The salmon.
Oh, that secret.
That salmon secret.
Well,
yes.
the one is the design of the patty itself, which I must say is brilliant.
It is.
If I don't say so myself, which I did just say. But the brilliant part about it is that realizing that people, in order to eat fish, would have to get past the fact that it's fish and they're not eating a hamburger. So I had to come up with a way to mimic both texture and flavor of a delicious sizzling hamburger. And so I dealt with it by the grind of the salmon itself.
I see.
But also the glaze, the soy sugar glaze that I brushed on each patty. So when you put it on the charbroiler, it instantly chars and candies, and that char creates a crunch, and the burning carbon, which is the terrific char flavor, goes along with the meat, and pretty soon it's as close to a hamburger as you could come up with. So people, when they bite down into it, they go, wow, that is really good. Well, what they were really good about is that it didn't taste like fish, you know, and especially fish that people don't know how to cook, so it, you know, it smells like fish, and it tastes like fishy, and all those horrible kind of memories we got from eating fish from our parents that don't know how to cook fish. And so we get these, you know, really bad memories about it. But in this case, it was addictive. And so, but that was one part of it. The other part, which I'm not sure whether I'll divulge just yet.
No?
It'll be announced upon my death, probably. So you'll just have to keep tuned.
Okay, I'll stay close by.
Please.
To the end.
To the end.
There's also the eggplant parmesan. Why is that a signature dish?
Well, Rob, probably because I made it. You know, so that alone creates its signature.
But it's not very popular, eggplant.
No, it's not. No, it's not. But you know, with the guidance of George, in memory, you know, our dear chef, that our mentor, our teacher, he taught these beautiful breadings that, again, it's so much about texture. The thing about eggplant is that mushy, disgusting kind of eggplant taste, when cooked incorrectly, brings horrible responses. When in this case, it's crisp and flavorful, and it's topped with mozzarella cheese and Parmesan cheese and pesto and a marvelous marinara sauce and fresh spinach on it and toasted bun, and you know, all these wonderful features that in harmony. I would even take the tomato and drench it in pesto and put it on top, and and so when you bit down into the thing, the harmonious flavor was you know, it just
well, French toast is the harmonious meal that I would like to eat during my breakfast, and you have that dish. Is it any what makes it a signature dish?
Well, the brilliance behind the French toast is that it's really another variation off my initial genius of creating the custard omelet. So the custard omelet, you'll find that weaves a thread like a mandala through several of dishes that people have come to me and said, that is the most amazing thing I've ever had. Well, you know, every one of them has yet to realize that it's just the custard omelet revisited in another form. So basically it's the custard omelet embracing the sourdough, dried sourdough French bread, and of course the special Romanoff sauce that's on top, the peach Romanoff or raspberry, and the toasted almonds, all those things with the hot blueberry sauce really creates a you know, an experience that people don't come down from once they enter into it.
So here you are at the country fair. You are.
Well, at the Teddy Bear's Picnic.
Well, here we are at the Teddy Bear Picnic.
That's right.
But you have just made a name for yourself with these dishes. Did they start from the beginning and you've been carrying them through each year? Did it evolve to become your popular dishes? Is that how you started?
They just they had an immediate response.
Immediate response.
That's
you
right.
Stayed with them.
That's right. So
you were there at the.
Why
fair?
break it if it works? You know. I mean.
And you came back.
Something like that.
You came back each year, but you were working at the Primavera.
That's right. I've always been a great fan of doing it all. You know, at a certain point, later I started going on the road with the Grateful Dead, and that was the middle of the 70s. And so, I was La Primavera, cooking on the road for the Grateful Dead, doing the country fair, some concerts that came locally, and soon after that started with Alice and a few other people, created the Whitaker Thanksgiving dinner, and kept getting involved in different events that continue to this day.
Amazing, right? That's a lot of work, and you still are doing a lot of that work.
Well, I think everything that we seem to do is just what we do. None of it's really work. I don't really feel that I've ever worked.
Why not?
Well, because I don't want to. I want to do what I do. And what I do, I love doing it.
Yeah.
So, I do that full time in my life. I do my life full time. I don't work full time.
Right.
I just live full time. And
so you have a lot of these stories that you've experienced from early 70s, right into the year 2000. And in the year 2000, you are now reflecting on a lot of that.
Well, it's actually, now it's 2000, almost 2012.
Is it almost 2012?
That's right. Today it changed.
Time flies.
That's right.
So we've come like a 40-year period here.
That's correct.
In
fact, next year will be my 40th anniversary of the country fair.
The country fair. So your 40th. And are you planning anything extraordinary?
Absolutely.
You are?
Absolutely. But
is there anything to do with your famous Friday night dinners?
I wouldn't be surprised, but you know what? I'll always be surprised because I never know what I'm going to do yet in advance because it hasn't started the process, but it'll be something worthy of the 40-year run.
Right.
I know that, and I'm looking forward to it. Living that long has been.
It's true. 40 years of your cooking experience.
Yeah, right.
And there's 20 years before that.
That's right. So
so we're about the same. Well, I know we're same gender, but the same age.
I can't speak for you, John, but or Jane, but I can speak for me.
It's John, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about how this is all. Can you reflect on any of this work that you've done that to you has become who you are today, Chez Ray?
No, I don't think I can.
You can't. Not at this moment. Not at this very crucial moment.
No, I think it's. I was just talking to Cindy Wooten, who started this fair.
Yes.
And we were talking about that. Both of us share one thing in life is that I don't expect anything, but I'm ready for it to happen. And I think that is the thing that I've come away from, is that I don't expect to do the fair next year, but I'll be ready for it when it happens. And that's the way I've sort of lived, so I've always gone on to the next thing. I think humans have realized the reason the earth is round is because we're constantly under siege, being chased, and we're also chasing the next thing. So of course it's got to be round, otherwise it would come to an end.
Yeah.
So
every year it seems like as the sun goes around in the universe.
So do I.
So do you.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So it's pretty logical in its own way.
Yeah, it is kind of logical, I see.
Yeah, right. And that's dangerous, the fact that you see that, John.
I don't want to look into it too deeply.
Don't look too close. Right.
So I'm wondering, Ray, what is next for you? What are you trying to do?
Well, right now I'm working on I'm about to come out with a coffee product, Headliner's Coffee.
Yeah.
And I've got licensing agreements with Wavy Gravy, the Karamazov Brothers, Steve Parrish, that's Garcia's roadie, New Riders of the Purple Stage, Terry Haggerty from the Sons of Chaplin. and a number of Save a Foundation, the Neville brothers want to come in on it, but basically I designed roasts, coffee roasts, that would suit the personalities of these individuals and characters. So they would, like Rhodey's roast is high caffeine, low acid for the working man, or like a roadie, and so that's how I designed these. Person's very witty, like the Karamazov brothers.
Yes.
The fast wit kind of thing, and I just learned the flavors of beans and roasting styles, and really studied it with one of the great masters in coffee, and it's totally working. It's really fantastic. I'm finishing up a book that will go into great depth about some of what we've brushed upon.
I see.
If not all of it.
I did hear one chapter, and it was you have a very compelling voice. I mean, I was just listening to the voice, and it was very soothing. It was it's a great
often
road.
People say they fall asleep.
Well, hopefully not while I'm driving, but I'm thinking it's a very good voice to hear and stories to hear while you're traveling.
Yeah, well, it's again, I just. My friend Terry Haggerty is one of the best guitarists in America.
Yeah.
Was the lead guitarist for the Sons of Chaplin, which was one of the great 60s bands. And we just went into the studio one time, and he asked me to just start reading my stories. I told him I'm incredibly dyslexic, so I'm going to stumble. He said, so what? Just read them, and I'll play to the story as I hear. Some of them were about Bob Dylan, and how it was like working with a gunfighter, and so he would play to that, or play to Santana, or story about cooking too close to the stage, and my smoke from the barbecue twirling up onto the stage and spinning across the stage while Santana began to play to the swirling smoke, and some very amazing, rather humorous moments that upon reflection were not only so stupid, but they're very funny. And so there's a lot of that kind of stuff.
Are you pleased at this point where you're going with the work that you're involved in right now?
Well, I suppose once I haven't really thought fully about where I've come from, but so far I'm very happy to be who I am.
Yes.
Yeah. It's been a wonderful journey.
It has.
But it's you only want to reflect so much. I think the best thing that happened to me on dialysis was it gave me a chance to stop and think about where I've been, and I've never really looked back. And so as I began to unravel the boxes, literally hundreds of boxes of photos and stories that I've been writing and accumulating, laminates and whatever, it was pretty stunning, the things that I've done and gone through with other people, and so I am grateful for that part of my kidney disease, that it gave me the chance to push the restart button in a sense. And now that I have a transplant that's so far so good working, that I'm able to now fulfill a number of the dreams that I thought might not happen, that have been on hold. So there's a reflection, but at the same time I'm not looking back. I'm plowing ahead forward like I always have, and the whole thing is have courage. Don't ever be afraid of losing, because your loss is your experience and you own it. And nobody understands that except somebody that's tried to do it. And it's easy for people to stand on the sideline and yak about I don't know, that doesn't sound like you might fail. So what? You own that experience. Yeah, it's huge.
It is huge.
Yeah.
So could you tell us a little bit about the country fair, to tie this up maybe, to give us some kind of...
Well, I think you can hear it. This music and beautiful people we're surrounded by, and my family and friends, and I've known you, John, for longer than anybody here. So
about 42,
I mean, that's what the country fair is. It's your friends and our family, and that's what Eugene is. It's a community that people don't leave. It's very rare in America to have a community where people stay put. So I think that speaks with the country fair is central to that. And this thing is famous all over the world. People talk about the country fair in Europe. They go, my God, I'd love to go to that event. You know, it's culturally, it's as high up as Wavy Gravy's Hog Farm and the, you know, the Family Dog, any of the large cultural families. The Country Fair family is right up at the same level. It's, you know, I don't think people here realize that. They look at it as just a, you know, a fun festival that you can go to, and you know, a lot of them like to come and get fucked up. Well, that's way more than that going on here, and they'll see it.
The land is precious. It does.
Land is precious.
We're
and
right outside of Eugene.
And so are the people.
Yes.
Yeah, the people are precious too, you know. So, and experiences. Wow. You know.
Well, Ray, you know, it's been a pleasure being with you. And
once
knowing you
again,
this
John.
long.
Once again, yeah.
Once again, we keep coming back together and
That's right.
learning more about your stories.
Yeah.
And I hope that you and I can continue to have a conversation and dialogue, and we will just talk about as it unfolds.
I think that's probably quite likely, and
maybe we come by and visit you on your 40th anniversary at the Country Fair.
well, I think that would be smart of you. You know,
Okay,
I think like
smart.
anything that you should just continue to roll this out, and there should never be an end.
Okay, until we get that final last secret. I see. Yes.
Right.
That's a good point he's bringing up there.
That's right. That's right. So, stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
That's right. Stay tuned in.
I think we're about ready to tune out. So, thank you, Ray. It's been a
Thank you,
pleasure.
John. Thank you, Bob, behind the camera there.
Did you have a St. Helens Grateful Dead story? You mentioned St. Helens.
I did.
And I have one last question I forgot to
Okay,
ask you
that's
about.
all right.
but Let's move to that. So, are you rolling?
Yeah, I'm rolling.
Okay. Ray.
Yes, John.
I wanted to ask you this for a long time because it's sort of like something I heard about. You were in a circle, a group of people, and it was an Om circle, and I understand that you got flack from people when you said omelette.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, first of all,
Yes.
I seek flack.
You see
You know,
flack.
I mean, I think that there's nothing better than shaking up people's world.
Aha.
You know, especially when they get into a absolute moment of uncompromising spirituality or anything where stiff is the outcome. I learned one thing from the Tibetan monks: spirit and humor, equal parts. Equal parts. Too much spirit, you're sort of boring person. Too much humor, you're too silly. People don't take you serious. Equal parts. And so with that in mind, it just happened that the Om Circle that goes all the way around the Country Fair would join right at my booth in the back. The final two hands coming together that would link the entire circle of hundreds and hundreds of people in a very serious chain of harmony and Om. And so they were spiritually,
very dramatic.
absolutely,
It's
boy,
a key point.
key point. Spiritually at the
Where the
the
electricity begins, right?
That's right.
That connection
That's
right there.
The pinnacle.
The pinnacle.
The pinnacle of the
Yes.
entire experience.
I wish I was there.
Yeah, I thought you were there.
Okay.
But as that moment came about, I just happened to be preparing omelets at the time, my custard omelets. And my friend Mitch and I were, and I still had a line regardless of this home circle going on. And so I was cooking my omelets because I couldn't stop. People were, you know, waiting all day. And so I'm cooking away, and pretty soon they start their Om. And then we would look at each other and we respond, let's. And we thought it was just hilarious, you know. And you know, the omelette was the birth of the omelette. Of course, people in the line were horrified, to say the least, that we should dare interrupt the sacred Om circle, let alone introduce humor into the moment, which, you know.
It was already balanced, but you thought.
Well, you know, if we're any reflection of whatever this kind of God is,
Yes.
obviously humor is a big part of it.
Yes.
Because, you know, just look at us. So, that's right.
Speak for yourself.
I am speaking for myself.
Okay.
And I'm looking at you. So you know, that is, I thought that was just a magnificent moment,
Yeah.
and the response was absolutely so precious. So that was what happened with
I
that.
see. That's what happened.
That's right.
What was that other question we had?
Well, I believe the other one that Bob, the camera slash editor, came up with back there, producer, was that I believe it was 1982, the second time St. Helens blew. And now I'll set the little background real quick, is that we all gathered at Kesey's at the farm early in the morning, sunrise, you know, and we're all going to the Grateful Dead concert together. This is really like one of those incredible moments, going to the Dead show with the pranksters, and you know, this is like, doesn't get any better than this. And it was one of those mornings that, you know, you could feel the energy in the air was really magical, and you know, everyone was like anxious, and you know, we could tell that something big was going to happen, but none of us knew what. You know, it was just going with Kesey and the pranksters to the Grateful Dead show, and so, you know, sunrise coming up, and you know, casting over Ken's farm, and you know, we're in there and waiting for Ken to come out, and Faye making coffee, his wife, and you know, it's all exciting. So we get I go out to my brand new truck that I had from the one time in my life, and I'm looking out there, and here's Paige Browning, the prankster from the first show at the country fair site, the Dead show, is painting this symbol on my truck. And you know, I'm thinking, what the fuck you doing, man? And he said, no, it's magic. I said, I don't care what it is. It's, you know, painting the symbol, and he said it'll wash off. So I'm like, shit, man. So anyways, we finally gather up, get in the caravan, up we go, up the valley to this, hey John, to this Dead show, and at the Portland Coliseum. And as soon as we got there, Paige jumps out of the car, runs inside, hops up on stage. They had just done sound check, all the sound speakers and wires and key, and everything was perfectly aligned for the sound check. Hours and hours of placement, perfect. Concert ready to start. Paige starts fucking with the speakers to face them towards the mountain. Now, nobody asked him to do this, and nobody in the band, the roadies, couldn't say anything because it's the pranksters, you know, and they just, you know, it's the pranksters, all right, it's, you know, they're family with the dead. Nobody ever says anything, so they just let Paige do it, and then we all exit, and I was like, I'm not going up there, and you know, I'm not part of this, and so anyways, the concert starts. Now, this was in the Oregonian paper too, so it can be researched, but during the show, about halfway through it, the whole Coliseum shook. And now, I'm using this music as my theatrical interlude here.
Okay.
The feel the power of it.
Yes.
The building shook, John. You got it.
I got it.
What's happening is that Bob Weir then came on and said, Mount St. Helens just blew. And this was during the song Fire on the Mountain.
Oh my God.
I know. During the song Fire on the Mountain, the mountain blows. We were out there saying the mountain's blowing and we're going to have to cut the concert short. So, you know, people are like stirring around and, oh my God, and you know, they start exiting the building. Mind you, they're on their trip that they were prepared for to go till the end of the concert, so they're halfway through their trip of whatever that trip was. Some were magic drugs, and some were imagination, some were whatever, but they're only halfway through. So all these people are going out into the streets under the condition of not quite finished yet.
Not quite finished,
yeah,
right.
But here they are. Well, what was coming then was this giant ash cloud.
Oh my gosh.
Drifting towards the Coliseum, and at the same time there was the sunset. We're casting this rouge color in the sky.
Yeah.
And the ash balls were about this big, the size of golf balls.
My gosh.
And they're floating about this fast. Hundreds, thousands of them floating through, but the casting of the pink, this light was like pink dots, pink polka dots floating through the sky. sky coming at us. You know, the most psychedelic thing I've ever seen in my life.
Was part of the show.
It was part of the show. And so we're completely, you know, snowing these pink balls on us. And it was just, you know, it was beyond your imagination even. You couldn't have hallucinated this. You know, so everyone starts scrambling, getting in their vehicles, and we're the last car out of the backstage, and we're racing towards the bridge to cross over into downtown Portland so we can go down I-5. And they were closing the bridges off and stuff because it was starting to drizzle from the weather that happens during the course of an eruption. It creates its own weather. So it's drizzling down, and drizzle mixing with the silicon turns into glass. And so the bridges were turning into glass.
Oh my God.
And cars are like out of control all over the place. At the same time, it's snowing this ash. And so we're like the last one they let across. And I was with Paige in my truck and my wife Dawn, and I'm just, you know, trying to keep it on the road, and my windshield is filling up with ash, but I couldn't turn my windshield wipers on because it would be like tearing glass across. So Paige would have to get out while we're driving, reach out of the window and pull the ash off the windshield while I'm going as fast as I could to get in front of the ash cloud. And so we did that all the way down to Salem, which was about an hour and a half, actually 2 hours and a half by then, just because we had to move at the pace that we could. Anyways, we got down it, and it was more story than I feel like telling right now. But so
well, the music is subsiding here.
That's right, and so am I. I am subsiding with the music now. So.
But thanks again, Ray.
Okay, John.
We'll continue the stories when we meet up again.
That's right. That's right. Probably someplace like here. Okay.
Thank you.